After berthing for a week, the Chinese ship Yuan Wang 5 finally set sail from the port on August 23rd, leaving behind muddied waters in the Park Strait. It had been docked at Sri Lanka's Hambantota port since August 16th, despite objections by India. Initially, the Sri Lankan government had deferred permission only to reverse its position after considerable pressure from China. As the Yuan Wang 5 departs, the questions regarding Chinese intentions linger. To understand the genesis of the Lanka-China ties, one has to go back by a couple of decades when in 2005, riding on Sinhala nationalism, the Rajapakses led by the elder brother Mahinda Rajapakse assumed power in Colombo and made a determined bid to end insurgency in country's north and eastern provinces. Sri Lanka's immediate neighbour India was hesitant in engaging with the Rajapakse regime due to pressure from the regional Tamil parties in India. That's when China stepped in. China became a key partner in this war against the banned terror outfit, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, by ensuring a regular supply of arms and ammunition to the Lankan military.
During the war, as we all know, Sri Lanka got to some extent cornered from the West. And so therefore there wasn't much investments and any other kind of support coming in. And that led to probably the Rajapaksa government to look at China as a way forward for its infrastructure developments and so on. And I don't put the blame on China 100%. The Chinese, of course, made the advantage, or use the advantage at that particular moment for their own strategy, the BRI strategy.
Belt Road Initiative, or BRI, is a global development strategy adopted by Chinese President Xi Jinping in 2013 to invest in nearly 150 countries through which the historical Silk Road passes through. A section of the maritime Silk Route passes from China's east coast to Europe through the Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka is a key ally in China's efforts to revive this maritime Silk Road. It also gives China a strategic role in the Indian Ocean. In the process, the communist regime developed both personal and diplomatic ties with Sri Lanka. As a quid pro quo, Sri Lanka opened its doors to the Chinese investors for vanity projects like ports and airports. The investments came with a price tag.
If you look at a distillery which produces various types of alcohols and brands, and you don't hold the distillery responsible if there are addicts. So here what happened, the Rajapaksa regime became addicted to the whatever the offerings, the kickbacks, and whatever other opportunities that was offered along with the loans, and they went all out to that.
By 2020, Sri Lanka was hurtling towards debt trap. Its external debt to China rose to 6% of the country's GDP. Over the last 7 years, debt to China as a percentage of the total Lankan debt has been on a steady rise, while that of India has shown a reverse trend. Unable to generate sufficient revenues from these infra projects, Lanka was forced to hand over Hambantota port to China on a 99-year lease in 2017.
When we say that the Chinese stepped in, I think we should also be honest in doing soul searching. And we would realize that probably we abdicated Sri Lanka in that period, or maybe took Sri Lanka for granted. We probably felt that now that the civil war is over, things will pretty much, come back to normal. There will be this kind of reconciliation that would happen. The Rajapaksas, having won that battle, did not face any kind of political challenge. And so we thought the kind of expectations we had about national reconciliation, about mainstreaming the Tamils into Sri Lankan politics, Sri Lankan society, that would be a kind of a fair pass. But in that period, I think we were quite complacent in not understanding the ambitions of the Rajapakshas. Let's not forget that Hambantota was something that was offered to us initially, and had our government probably not been a little slothful in probably taking Sri Lanka for granted as a country who always will look to us and would always be part of our sphere of influence. And we did not appraise the Chinese role in South Asia enough.
Sri Lanka's location at the tip of the Indian peninsula just across the Park Strait is strategically important for both India and China. The public unrest triggered by the economic crisis in Sri Lanka recently forced the Rajapaksa family, including former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, to flee from the country. In the ensuing change of guard, the power equations have shifted, with former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe assuming the role of the president. While Lanka works out its terms and conditions for economic bailout with the World Bank and the International Monetary Funds, India, as part of its Neighbourhood First policy, has offered a line of credit for fuel imports and more than $1 billion in assistance to procure essential goods.
But if we are going to measure whether we succeed or fail in terms of, let's say, a ship that docks, in Hambantota or Colombo or not, I think that will be a kind of a defeating proposition. We will have to see what happens over the next 5 to 7 years, whether these projects, the big elephantine projects that China has in Sri Lanka, if these proceed as planned, if the Sri Lankan government reschedules these debts, tries to work them down, or basically continues to be business as usual. So I would say within the limitations that India has, given that we are only 1/6 of the Chinese economy financial, I think we've done the most we could in standing up at Sri Lanka in this hour of need.
But Chinese influence in Sri Lanka runs deep. An international think tank report cites China's personal relationship with key regime actors as one of the many diverse ploys used by Beijing to expand its influence in the region. China is a $15 trillion economy and a military power trying to expand its footprint and influence across seas and continents. The recent maneuvers and hawkish foreign policy are also seen to be part of a strategic positioning in the Indian Ocean and Indo-Pacific, especially in the context of the weakening of the Western powers in the last 1 decade. In New Delhi, for Deccan Herald, Sumit Pande.